Welcome to the Bonnet House kitchen. This is where some fantastic dishes were made for the people to eat who lived at Bonnet House. But I want to introduce our favorite volunteer today. This is Cindy Jenkins. She's one of our Bonnet House fine artists. She also was an art teacher and still teaches children here at Bonnet House some really neat projects. So today she's going to teach us how to make a snowflake. Go for it, Cindy.
Thank you, Miss Charlotte. I'm so happy to be here and to do this really easy craft with you. It's one of my favorite ones to do after the holiday season. The first day back, we always did snowflakes. And I want to talk to you about some of the materials that I've used and something that you probably have lying around your house that you can use to make snowflakes. It doesn't have to have a fancy background. If you can bend the paper, then you can make a snowflake out of it, even a small piece of paper. And I like to decorate both sides of the paper. Sometimes I use watercolors, sometimes I use markers, crayons, colored pencils, anything you have lying around your house. The only time you need Elmer's glue is if you're going to use glitter. And I did do one of the snowflakes with glitter. And you can also display them in several ways. I'll show you a couple of samples of the glitter. This is glitter glue, which is really easy to use and not very messy because it just squirts out of the nozzle. But if you use glitter, I'm going to suggest that you have a paper towel and that you use some kind of a sturdy background and that you perhaps have an adult supervise you with glitter because it can be really messy. And here's a sample of a snowflake with glitter. And this is watercolor paper that's decorated on both sides. And when you want to hang your snowflake, you can use a variety of different kinds of ribbons. You can see here that I've got a little bit of Christmas ribbon. And on this one, I also used a hole punch. So that's another tool in my toolkit. On this one, I also have ribbon. And you can also use paper doilies that you can buy at the grocery store to hang the snowflakes together. So they can be hung at different heights, and they can be hung with monofilament, which is fishing line. Anything that you can tie into the holes. And basically what we have when we make a snowflake is negative space or negative shape. And that ties into math really easily. You can also use coffee filters, and we sometimes have these for making coffee, but you can also cut the circle. So I'm going to try to demonstrate both using the square shape and also using the circle. So they're very lightweight. You can see that they'll just float away. And you can, these ones I used food coloring. And I let the food coloring dry, and it saturated both sides. You can see that they're decorated on both sides. So these are coffee filters, and I'm going to use those to demonstrate for you. You can use magazine paper, and this is colorful. It's going to be double-sided, so you want to try to find a picture that has some color on both sides. This one is a better example of this one not so great because it's got writing on it. But any kind of paper that you can cut yourself and fold and cut. This is this kind of paper, and I left this one plain, but I could still put it on my surface, a hard surface. You don't want to color on a nice kitchen table, but if you use either a paper towel or some kind of a hard surface, you can still go back and color this, and you don't have to stay in the lines. There's really no rules. You can scribble a lot. On this paper, which is just regular photocopy paper, I used watercolor, and then I used watercolor crayons. And on this side, I like it because it has texture and it has line. But on this side, you can see that some spaces don't look so beautiful. So I could go back with my crayons or my colored pencils or my markers and just decorate that. So I'm going to show you that you don't have to be really neat. You can even scribble, and that's going to still make a nice snowflake. I'm going to put some more on here. And you want to be sure you do the edges, because the edges of the paper are going to show. So again, markers, colored pencils, crayons, which you probably already have at home. And on this one, I already have a square piece of paper, but what I did was I used the watercolor crayons first, and then I used this bleeding tissue paper. And I put this again on a paper towel next to the sink, and I let the tissue paper bleed onto the paper. So I kind of like this, and I scribbled on the back. You can see it's very scribbly. And if I like it, when I finish, then I'll leave it and put ribbon on it and hang it. But if not, I can still go back. As long as the paper is dry, I can still go back and add more decoration. Okay, so all kinds of paper can be used, even watercolor paper, which this is watercolor paper decorated on both sides. And that's what this snowflake was made from. And also this snowflake was made from is this watercolor paper. This is a little bit lighter paper, but it still can be used. It's decorated on both sides with watercolor. And I have another scrap here. If we have time, I'll make as many snowflakes as we have time for. And this is just construction paper, but this is a little bit of a fancy piece of construction paper. And it has a solid side, and then it has kind of a stripy side. But construction paper is great too. You could even use the funny papers if you wanted to, from the newspaper. Any kind of paper, again, that you can fold and cut is going to be great for snowflakes. So there's only one rule when you make a snowflake, and that is that you fold the paper down or up and you make a triangle. All of these snowflakes, except for the ones made with the coffee filters, were made with rectangular paper. So I'm going to sit down now, and I have a big pair of scissors because this fits my hand, but you might want to use a smaller pair that fits your hand better, okay? So I'm going to sit down now and show you how to actually make the snowflake. And we're going to take the corner of the paper, any corner you want to use, and you fold it either up or down. I'm going to fold this one up, and I'm going to line up the bottom edge and make a crease on the diagonal. So you see, this is half of a triangle, and the other half is on this side. So we've got symmetry already because we folded the paper, and this is exactly the same as this. Now, this part right here is not part of our snowflake because it's not part of the triangle or the square that we need. So we're going to cut that away, and we have a straight line. So you know, you open your scissors and close your scissors just like an alligator. Open and close. This finger goes outside, your thumb goes in the small hole, your other 3 fingers go in the large hole on your scissors, just like you learned in school. Open and close. We're just making alligator mouth. Open and close, and this left hand is my driver hand. This is how I hold the paper. So it drives the paper. Okay, so both sides are the same. You can see it's a square now, right? So I'm going to continue to fold this paper until I can not cut anymore. So every time I fold the paper, I'm going to crease it. And it doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to cut away. It's going to look like a puzzle piece. I think I can fold it one more time and possibly another time, but I'm just going to show you with this size because it'll be easier for you. Okay, now you can see we have 3 points, right? And the only thing we have to be concerned with is this folded edge. If we cut away this folded edge, the snowflake is going to fall apart. But it's a piece of paper, and you can see we have more. We have more paper. You can even use notebook paper from school. And remind me, Miss Linda, at the end we're going to make it snow. So I save all the pieces that I cut because making it snow in Florida is the fun part. So again, my thumb goes in the small hole, my 3 fingers in the large hole, and my pointer finger goes outside because that's going to help open and close the alligator mouth. So I'm going to make a shape on each of these points. I'm going to cut them away, and I'm making a shape. I'm not just cutting a straight line. You can cut a curved line, as I did here. You can cut a V. Now I'm holding on to this folded edge. All of this is the folded edge. I'm holding that with my driver hand. So now I'm going to start cutting shapes into the other sides. And if it doesn't work, you can pull it out. But I'm going to cut some deep shapes so you can see that it's a surprise. That's the fun part of a snowflake. Now this is also a folded edge, but this is not the one I have to be real concerned about. It's this one that has the 4 folds that I have to be concerned about. Now that sort of looks like a little bird, right? So on this side, because I have 3 folds, I'm going to cut smaller shapes. Cut smaller shapes, and you can see that I'm trying to get all my scraps to go onto this foam core board that I'm using for my background. Okay, now this point, I think I can make something better. So I'm going to just cut a shape at that point. Okay, so now I have this puzzle piece. Now I can open it up and see if I like it. And if I don't like it, I can refold it and make some more cuts. But I kind of like it, especially if it's on the diagonal. Remember, we have the sides and then we have the straight line that we folded. Well, that's the diagonal line. So you decide how you like it, but you can see that we've got a lot of negative shape and that they are the same in 4 places. They're all the same. Okay, so that's one snowflake, and I kind of like it. Now, if I want more holes, remember I said I can use the hole punch, and it's got a pink handle, so I know it's here. Okay, so I can fold it back, but if you fold it all the way back to here, it's hard. It's really hard to cut through this many pieces of paper. So I'm going to open it up to here. If you need to open it up to here, to just half, this is also about fractions, right? Because this is half, this is 1/4, and this would be an 1/8. But I'm going to open it up to a 1/4. And again, because I have everything lined up the same, when I put the hole punch in, I got to find the bottom. Make sure I find the bottom so it goes through really nice. And I'm just going to squeeze, okay? So I can make as many holes as I want to, and I'm going to show you some that I've done with the hole punch. This one, you can see there are extra holes, the round circles. And this one, which is just made out of regular photocopy paper and scribbled with watercolor crayons, and then I used water on top. So these have hole punches on them. These other ones don't. So it's up to you how you want to decorate and how you want to cut your snowflake. But just like your personality, just like your fingerprints, we're all unique. So here's one that I just made, and I can show you another one that I made out of the same paper, and it's just the way that you cut it. Different cuts is going to provide you with different shapes, and they're all unique and they're all exciting. So I can display these behind another sheet of paper if I wanted to, and punch a hole at the top and hang that in the window. Or put this on my Christmas tree, but I would probably cut the construction paper a little bit at the bottom. So you can hang them by themselves, or you can use construction paper behind them as well. You can also use the construction paper to make the snowflakes out of. So I'm gonna show you another one with watercolor paper, and I've already folded the corner down. And I have this part, which is not part of my square, or half of a square is a triangle, right? So I'm going to cut that away. And I'm going to save that because that can be a baby snowflake. And I'm going to fold this one more time because that's probably as much as I can actually hold and cut. Okay, it will be too thick. Again, you want to fold your paper so that you can cut it. You're the one in charge of the paper. So now we have two edges here that have folds, and I have to be careful not to cut that away totally. I can cut into these two edges, but if I cut all of this away, it's going to fall apart and you'll have two pieces of paper. So I'm going to start with this and make some shapes. I'll try some triangles, and they don't all have to be the same length or the same size. That's the beauty of this. You can cut as much as you want. I'm going to cut this off. And this is the open edge, and this doesn't quite line up, so I'm going to cut that away because I'm going to make this symmetry. I want this to be symmetrical. So this is the side that I have to be careful of. So that's what you have to think about. Where is the folded edge that has to stay apart, that has to stay together, I'm sorry. So I'm going to cut that little bit off and cut this little bit off. And you see I have too big of a shape. So I'm going to do some more cutting on this because I want negative shape. The negative shape is what makes the snowflake so beautiful. It's not what you have left, it's the holes that make the snowflake unique. Okay, so that's looking a little bit better. And on this edge, this is the open edge, I can cut some shapes into that without fearing that it's gonna fall apart. And believe me, every one that I cut is not perfect, but again, it's a piece of paper, and paper can be thrown away. And I'm gonna save all of those, and we're gonna make it snow at the end. And then we'll clean it up. Cleanup is part of the end process, right? The very end. Okay, so I kind of like that. I might cut a little more into this. So you can see that it kind of ends up looking like a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle piece, right? When you finish, you have a jigsaw puzzle. Okay, so we're going to open it up, and then the paper's already decorated. But if I want to go back and decorate the paper, I certainly can. So you can see that that one is different from the one I cut before. This one has more hearts. This one has more straight line shapes, geometric shapes. This one has some heart shapes, curvilinear shapes. So every time you cut, you really can't do two alike because your cuts are going to be different. Okay, so I'm going to show you just to start this, but I won't make it. You've got to fold this edge down and make a crease, a diagonal crease. And that's how you start. This little bit didn't quite make it, but I'll cut that off. This part you cut away, and that you can make a baby snowflake. So I'm going to demonstrate the same principle with this little small piece, and we've got to wrap it up. So let me sit down again and fold the piece down or up, whichever you prefer. And you see I've got a triangle, and I'm going to cut away what's not part of this snowflake. And I can probably make two out of this piece, or three, probably three. But I'm just going to make one to demonstrate. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this folded in half. And now I'm going to start cutting. The side that I have to worry about is this one right here. That's the side I have to worry about. Don't cut that all apart, but you can still cut into it. And this is our little scrap piece. I'm cutting the corners off, making some kind of pretty shape. And that's my puzzle piece. So here's my little baby snowflake. And with this one, I probably, oh, it looks like a person, right? There's the head, there's the arms, there's the legs. So I would probably use my hole punch and make some more holes in that one, okay? And if I'm gonna show you just how to fold the coffee filter. And remember I said I use food coloring and just put dots of food coloring on a background, on a paper towel, so that you don't mess up the kitchen or the table. You wanna use a background when you use something wet. So you fold it in half. Again, now you've got symmetry. You fold it again. So now you've got a fourth, and you see that it's sort of a triangle with a round bottom, right? And you could probably fold it one more time because this paper is very thin. Okay, so now this is the folded edge and this is a folded edge, but it's exactly the same. You just cut. And out of the coffee filters, I've made two, and they're just folded the same way, and the paper is thin, so sometimes it bends a little bit. But you could also put this behind a doily and put it on your tree, which you can buy these at Publix. That looks pretty because it's got negative shape. The doily has negative shape, and the snowflake has negative shape. You can also put it on a piece of construction paper, which looks pretty good. And I would probably cut this in as a line or maybe even a circle. Use the coffee filter as a template for your circle. So there's all kinds of ways that you can use paper to make snowflakes. You can use any kind of paper that you can bend, that you can fold, that you can cut. And I hope you will experiment with using wet materials with watercolor, and you can add glitter. This one has glitter glue. You can see it shining a little bit. This one has glitter glue on it, which comes in a bottle. You can use just regular glitter, but again, if you use glitter and glue, then you need to have a background and probably paper towels handy, okay? Okay, so as I promised, it's gonna snow, so I'm gonna take all my scraps and let it snow.